Oh, we're live. Hi, Rosemary.
Hey Sharon, how are you?
Very good. I'm going to just kick it off and welcome everybody who's watching our Smart Talks today. And I want to thank everybody for joining this Smart Talk. It's really our new LinkedIn Live series highlighting the latest trends on campuses worldwide. I'm Sharon Butler, EVP of Global Education, in case people don't know me. And I am very pleased to introduce Rosemary Kennedy, who is the Associate Vice President of Financial Services at Southern California. Rosemary, how are you today?
Great, thanks for asking, Sharon.
And I'm lucky because I get to stare at all those beautiful flowers today. So that's really nice. Well, let's see. We had a little bit of a chat the other day, and I feel like the key word in all of this, even the last couple of years, is change. And change in higher education, as I know, it's been a lot to manage. And I'm really happy to have you here today so that we can hear you out. And I'd love to hear more about if you could tell me a little bit about your leadership style and how that has helped you in the team at USC through the change.
Well, since you brought up change, yes, there's been a lot of change with us and more to come. It's interesting though, as difficult as the first year of the pandemic was to transition to remote working and online learning, in some ways the second year was even harder than the first. The first was more reactionary, and the second was making sure that change stuck and we stabilized our service delivery that would support change and innovation in our organization. And leadership was key to that. So, back to your question. So, I would say my personal leadership style is more collaborative style. I
Mhm.
see my job as someone to remove obstacles and break down barriers so progress can happen. The strength that I like to bring to the table is to have broad representation and informed team members that can listen and make decisions that move our organization forward. I consider my style really as more of a servant leader. I serve those I work with.
Yeah, I love that about you. And to sort of identify your leadership style, I acknowledge that because I feel like I'm the same way. I've never really kind of reflected on what is my style, but, I love to be there next to the team and observe what's happening and try to figure things out. And I sense that's the way you operate as well. In going through these changes, are there any particular initiatives that that any obstacles or initiatives you've taken on over the past year or so that you'd like to share?
Well, USC went live with Workday Financials this past July, and wow, the Workday Financial implementation was just a huge lift to do remotely. Being remote really changed the dynamic. We needed to up our game, especially when it came to reviewing processes. It was not done easily remotely. And another example is we also included third party solutions that allow us to be more agile, like Flywire. We permitted systems to post and reconcile transaction, and it automated our processes that helped us drive efficiency up while allowing us to better serve our students. A very positive outcome of this, it has allowed our staff to have more time to broaden their experience by supporting other areas with Student Financial Service Division and other areas of the organization. So, really, change has kept us really nimble and become much more creative.
Yeah, I feel like the key word is the creativity to try to operate in a very different world. And I've loved hearing about the different things that you're achieving over there on campus. Is there anything that you think of, any other challenges? You mentioned something. You've got the technology that's helping you to add more value, to try to use technology to minimize, help with the resource pool that you have. Tell me a little bit about your team. You mentioned something about the impact in morale over the last few years.
Well, Sharon, all the changes that have occurred over the past 2 years has really, in my opinion, impacted morale and stability of our teams. And as leaders, we need to support the goals of the university, but we also need to support each of our team members' goals. I believe we need to understand what motivates each other and what values are important to us as an organization. And then it's up to us as leaders to help our team achieve their aspirations. That's why it's important to encourage an environment that empowers our employees and fosters trust. We really need to understand that each of us bring a unique style to our work and then lean in and allow people to add their unique voices and style to our organization. So for me, what's key is that's when people become part of a team and not just a team member. If
Mm.
we haven't learned anything over the past 2 years, it is that our new reality is a place that demands flexibility, understanding, and creativity.
Yeah, I have heard around the sector in general, um, retention is a key worry, and recruiting. Not and I'm not just talking about students, but also staff. So what I think I'm hearing you say is that maybe the traditional model of being in at the office at a certain time has to shift a little to meet the sort of the changing requirements of the people that want to work.
In a lot of the conferences and meetings I go to with other universities, the student financial services area has always really been fortunate that we have long retention, but that's changing.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mm.
just in my area, in the last 2 weeks, we've had two resignations. We've had more in the past few months. People are looking for different ways to work remote and at home, and people are really changing how they want to work and what they want to do. So, making the work environment creative, pleasant to be at, and the cultures and the value that the organization wants you to participate in is critical.
Mhm. I know you had, when you talk about this, a good example was you could have a high performer, and yet they want some different, maybe they prefer a work style where they work different hours. And then you might have someone who's not such a high performer, but they'll, be in the office. So I understand the flexibility to look for the talent to help serve the students. One thing about USC and your department is you are very student focused, and you care about that experience for them. I know you had given some examples of, how you different things you implemented or changed in order to better serve your students. Do you want to share a little more about that?
Sure. Student stipends comes to mind, and I know a lot of our audience out there that were in the student financial services took the extra burden of doing the CARES refunds that really weren't student account issues; they were more stipends. So, student stipends comes to mind with me. With third-party digital tools, we no longer need to rely on addresses and postages for international students. And in our student services area, many of us have been doing that for years already. But we leveraged our student files this past year by automating the AP process to disperse funds electronically. And we're able to save a lot of time and offering better and quicker service to our students.
Yeah, your office really does embrace technology. I really, in all of the conversations I do get involved in, it does appear that automation can be the secret to do more with less. And it's very inspiring, and hopefully, our listeners um, can understand the various things that you're implementing there. Um,
And if I could just add to that really
yeah,
quickly,
sure.
Sharon, you know, there's so many different compliance issues that are going on now that to be an expert in all these areas
Mm,
and with our existing university IT resources is becoming a lot more difficult.
mm.
So third-party solutions are a great addition that put it in the hands of the experts and that know how to streamline the processes, and that way we can benefit from it.
That's a really good point. There's more and more uh, different regulations that are coming out almost every day. It's a full time job staying on top of them all. So I can understand that sentiment very well. Do you have, if you think about just in general, the audience that's listening out there, just any particular advice or anything you'd like to offer to these institutions?
Yeah, I do. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in flexibilities and work schedule. Trust and flexibility is key to success. And to getting back to your point about flexible schedules with students, I remember when I inherited an IT group, we had this awesome key employee that we tried to fit into an 8 to 5 job when he preferred working different hours. And since we were all 8 to 5, we wanted him to be 8 to 5. Well, the 8 to 5 schedule didn't work, and it hurt his morale and his overall outlook of how he was perceived in the organization. So, to make a long story short, He was able to keep his flexible work schedule and thrived in that process. And for me, the moral of that lesson is we have to realize that structure is important in certain areas, but we need to be flexible and ensure that structure doesn't override our end game and the results we want to
Mhm.
accomplish. So, in my opinion, what we should be looking out for is flexibility, trust, and integrity is what moves the line forward to success and employee enrichment. And I would just add, our work is hard enough and it's
Mm.
ever changing. We need to find a way to have fun and take risks and enjoy the ride and take our teams along on that ride with us.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So you have to have a little bit of fun. We try to do that here at Flywire too, but most of the fun comes when we get to spend time with our clients and learn from you. And this has been truly insightful. I've spending some time with you the last couple of days, hearing how you're operating there. Really glad to have the partnership and love to have the experts join our smart talks. Is there anything else you want to share before we part ways? Because I know you have an airplane to catch.
Well, you know what else I would say, Sharon, is we need to look outside our own universities. We
Hmm.
have certain organization in higher ed. Reach out to your colleagues, see what they're doing. I
Hmm.
mean, we don't have to invent everything ourselves. There's so much information out there that we can share and learn from each other. And I just am so fortunate that I have such a huge team of colleagues out there that are so willing to share their advice with me and their challenges that helps us overcome some of our challenges.
That's the best thing about higher ed, isn't it? That everybody is very willing to share best practices, help each other out. It's the thing that I love most about it. People have been very generous to me as well because in order to innovate and solve problems in education, you really need to hear what's broken, what's not working, your views on how things can get better. That's gold to a partner like Flywire. And I love the industry for it. So really do appreciate any insights to even listeners here. Always feel free to give us feedback. And if you want to learn more, you can always go to flywire.com and keep your eyes out for more smart talks. And if you have suggestions on what you'd like to have a smart talk on, we're always happy to set those things up. You can reach out to your relationship managers or just go to our website. But I want to thank Rosemary Kennedy for her time and the ability for me to look at those beautiful tulips in the background. It's been a joy to chat with you, and I hope you have a nice holiday.
Thanks, Sharon. Great talking with you too.
You too. Bye now.
Bye bye.